everyone. Jimmy and we're so excited that you are here and appreciate your patience with us getting you on the Zoom. This is Bill Britton. He has been connecting with some of you, and some of you already know Matt. Yay! Welcome. Matt's here. Bill is our CIO, Vice President. He has lots of titles, but he's on the senior leadership team with Dr. Armstrong, oversees CCI, all the IT infrastructure, staffing, cybersecurity for Cal Poly. He also is from industry, worked in the military, is a graduate of a liberal arts university, but has been very heavily involved nationally and perhaps internationally with cybersecurity and technology. So he and Career Services founded this event 5 years ago. And Jimmy and Danielle jumped in a few years ago to keep this event alive. And we're super, super excited about you all being here. Such a strong, powerful panel. And very grateful for your commitment to Cal Poly, the Cal Poly community, career education, and networking. Yeah, that's my welcome. Jimmy, I don't know if you have any comments. You help connect us with most of these speakers.
No, the only thing I would say, it's we have some new faces as well as some old faces that have been here with us through other sessions. And, you know, just behalf of Cal Poly to all of you, I know you're taking time out of your family schedule. You're taking time out of your busy day to be here. So we do really appreciate the continued public-private relationship with all of you.
And Lily, did you want to give any tech updates before Bill takes over? Bill takes over. Sorry.
Yes, absolutely. Hi, everyone. My name is Lily Holtzner. I use she, her pronouns. I am the career counselor for the College of Science and Math with Cal Poly Career Services. And I also support students in computer science, computer engineering, electrical engineering, and software engineering. So I'll be helping out behind the scenes today. Just some quick logistical things. I know we're all on a webinar right now for the first portion of this event with the panel. So thank you all so much for being here, and we're really excited to hear from all of you. But for the second portion of this event, so from 5:20 to 6, we're actually going to be leaving this webinar format, and then we have separate Zoom meetings for separate topics and separate speakers. I'll be putting that in the chat for everyone to see. Panelists, I know you've already received this information. So if you saw the Zoom link with the passcode, I know there might have been a little bit of interplay between trying to figure out the webinar and the Zoom meeting. So I apologize for any confusion with that. But that's where that second link and that passcode will come into play. You'll hop in there. We have some wonderful hosts and co-hosts from Career Services and the CCI that will be helping to facilitate those conversations. And for attendees, I encourage you to stick around, check out that networking opportunity. This is your chance to go in and have a little bit more of a personal conversation with all of these wonderful folks, pick their brains a little bit, ask them some more targeted questions, get that, personal connection going. So all of that information will be in the chat. I'll repeat this again. Don't feel like you need to remember it, but I'll go ahead and let everyone know when it's time to transition to those Zoom meetings. In the meantime, thank you so much, and I'm really looking forward to this.
Thanks, Lily. Bill Britton, are you ready?
I am ready. Let's do this.
Cool. I would say, esteemed and beloved speakers, do you have any questions or needs right now? No, you're good. Okay. Thank you, Bill. All you.
Thank you so much. Welcome, everybody. Good evening. I'm Bill Britton. I'm your moderator for tonight's event. And on behalf of Cal Poly Cybersecurity Institute and Career Services, thank you for participating in the 5th Annual State of Cybersecurity 2020. We've really enjoyed this forum over the years in person, but we all know that in person is not right now what we can do best. What we can do best is Zoom it. And so I don't care how many Zooms you've had today in a row. Matt's already told us that he's Zoomed out. 7, I think, is the max for someone today. This will be the most exciting Zoom that you have today, I guarantee it. Just by the audience and participants that we have, and use it to your advantage and ask questions. Be respectful online and use the Q&A session to ask those questions. And when we get to the panel, I'll try to moderate your questions as best I can. If we miss it, send it to us and we'll try to get you a follow-up and go from there. Most importantly, I'd like to thank our best partner at the University, Eileen Beaker in Career Services, for again partnering with us, honchoing this event, answering all the questions, collecting all the people's names and getting them all on the phone at the same time. Quite amazing. It's awesome to have you. I'd also like to thank all of Cal Poly STEM student clubs, computer science department, information systems department, the political science, alumni engagement, and all those who reached out to try to get you to attend tonight and touch base and said, hey, this would be interesting. I think we have some really interesting perspectives to present to you tonight that will help you understand what's going on in the world of cybersecurity and what's happening here. And just, you know, the moderated speaker experience should be fun. So let's get into it. What I'd like to do now is to introduce comments from the National Security Education Updates, Davina Pruitt-Mental. Oh, I butchered it, didn't I?
No, that's right.
Mental, okay. And I understand you have some slides and some information for us, so please.
Yeah. So we'll wait for those slides to come up, but thank you so much for allowing NICE to be able to share. So I serve as the lead for academic engagement within the NICE program office. That's the National Initiative for Cybersecurity Education. That is led by NIST, National Institute of Standards and Technology, which is part of the US Department of Commerce. So our main focus is on coming up with a national strategic plan on developing the cybersecurity workforce for the US. And actually our next, we do that every 5 years. Our next one is due the end of this year. So we're looking forward to that. And next slide, please. And what I was asked to do was just to bring a couple of big highlights that are coming up for some other events that fit nicely with this. One is National Cybersecurity Career Awareness Week. So that is November 9th through the 14th. It coincides with National Career Development Month. So it sounds like you're have those folks at the table. So we're really excited. There's lots of activities to engage, and I'll be talking about that in just one second, something that Cal Poly is doing, but capture the flag and webinars and podcasts and career family night and story time for little ones and all sorts of activities. So we hope that you will not only share in those festivities, but also make a commitment as small as we have a 6-day #MyCyberJob challenge, where we ask that you post pictures or what you love about your the cybersecurity field, or if you're already in it, what you love about your job. But there's other ways to participate as well. And the other component is coming up in December 7th and 8th is our National K-12 Cybersecurity Education Conference, and that is virtual. The pre-conference workshops are on the 5th and 6th. Yep, 5th and 6th, and then the 7th and 8th is the actual conference. So the next slide real quick, and then I'll turn it over. So we did want to mention how Cal Poly is helping us support National Cybersecurity Career Awareness Week. So there are actually a couple of events, but the first one is a webinar to discuss career opportunities for liberal arts students, something that we really try to emphasize within the NICE program office is that cybersecurity has something for everyone. It's not just technical. It's not just somebody with a hoodie sitting on a couch in a dark basement hacking into somebody's computer. There are much broader aspects to cybersecurity, and we want to attract the wider range in policy and law and logistics and math and crypto and and the all sorts of areas. So there's something for everyone, and I really am excited about this panel for liberal arts students because I think that it's something that really needs to be emphasized. So they'll be talking about how to upskill liberal arts background with cybersecurity, although a lot of the industry partners say they like the skills that liberal arts majors bring to the table. So maybe there's not too much upskilling needed. Internship opportunities, a roadmap to move forward, and again, answering questions and answers. And you have the panelists that will be sharing out on that. So thank you so much. And that date is the November 12th, and it is at noon your time. That would be 3 o'clock our time. But thank you so much for letting us share, and we're so excited that you are spreading the word, not only through Career Awareness Week, but these other events that you have year-round as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Davina. I understand. I think also we will also be presenting on how we just recently completed our Cybersecurity Innovation Challenge, and it's tied to the NICE framework as one of the presentations. So
yes.
Henry there, our lead on that.
Yes, that will, I believe, be Friday, a virtual tour, and then talking about that. So that it's Friday at 3 o'clock, but I don't have the specifics quite yet, so I didn't want to let the cat out of the bag. But since you did, I'll go ahead and say I'm excited about that.
Outstanding. Thank you very much for the endorsement. We love it. Thank you. What I'd also like to do now is to introduce our cybersecurity keynote address on industry updates, Shamla Naidu, and she is from IBM Global Security Services.
Oh, great. Thank you so much, Bill. It's such an honor for me to be here. You know, for those of you who know me personally, you know that education is extremely important to me. It's a very, very personal experience for me. So I'm really glad to be here. So, you know, let me provide a couple of perspectives. I think, you know, I've been in the industry now for almost 38 years. And I have seen evolution of technology, everything from when I wrote programs on an 8-inch floppy drive to writing COBOL programs on an IBM mainframe, all the way through where we find ourselves today with, you know, the state of the art in innovation. And so I feel like, you know, I need to put in perspective a little bit about how did we get here? And this for me, I think is, again, like I said, it's personal, but it's also a personal journey that I want to share. So, you know, if you think about business today, everything is changing. And it's changing largely because most organizations are looking at how to reinvent themselves. And, you know, we call it digital transformation, but realistically, what does that mean, right? Most companies are looking for, how do I serve my customers? How do I actually create capability for them to consume and use? At the same time, every company is looking to build high-tech capability, but they're also looking to scale. Consumers are looking for, mostly, they're looking to engage with businesses using technology. They're looking for a digital experience. They're looking for an experience that is quick, efficient, and easy. And so with that, most companies are including technology into their strategy. They're including a way to scale. And this whole idea of transformation is what journey we all on from a business perspective. So what does that do though? From a plain mathematical perspective, this digital transformation is including us in implementing a whole bunch of technology. And with that opportunity comes risk. And so one of the biggest risks that companies are facing today is on cybersecurity and the operational disruption and other related disruption that comes from cybersecurity attacks, and the threats are out there everywhere we go. So let me talk a little bit about what does that do from a security perspective and why is this important? Okay, so if you think about the technology that we all consume today, the boundaries have disappeared entirely. So our enterprises are looking at where we sit. There's no doors, there's no locks, there's no way for us to separate ourselves from those who intend to do us harm and those who will consume our products and services. So essentially, companies are now trying to protect their technology from all of this disruption, and they're trying to do it in a world that has no boundaries, and therefore the good guys and the bad guys are all interrelated. They all exist everywhere. So companies have to protect themselves from these threats, but it's made it even more difficult because everything is connected. Everything from your running shoes and your refrigerator to your cars and your t-shirts are now connected. So, like I said, just the pure mathematics of it is that we have so many more devices now that are connected, so many more opportunities for disruption, and so many more opportunities for us to make money and serve our customers in better ways. So we've got this volume problem. So anything we do has to scale. We have never before had as much innovation as we do today. Every company has more innovation available to them that's easy to consume, that's available, and that's quick and easy to implement. So we've got innovation at scale. We've got all of this consumer demand at scale, and we have to respond to that. So everything from cloud to the Internet of Things, to artificial intelligence, to all of the new technologies that are out there, from quantum computing to robotics and virtual reality. We can consume all of this great technology and innovation to enable our businesses to be more successful. As I said earlier, with that comes the threat that these technologies, as much as they do great things for us and our businesses and our consumers, they also create a larger footprint for this disruption and attack. And so, what do we have to do about that? And so one of the things that you will all see is that this industry has full employment. There are enormous opportunities in this area for people to enter this area for work, for innovation, to whether you're doing research, whether you just want to do an operational job. Every kind of role in an industry exists in cybersecurity. If you want to be a communication specialist, you can do it here. You want to be a programmer, you can do it here. You want to be a marketing person, you can do it here. You want to be a penetration tester, you want to be a hacker, you can do it all in this industry. And so this industry creates enormous opportunity for those who are on the job market, those who are looking to switch careers, those who are looking to be employed and to deliver value. And if you just think about this, we live in a data economy today. Half of the world's data was created in the past 2 years. And if that continues, every 2 years, we're going to be doubling the amount of data that we create, which means that for those of us in security fields, we are going to have to figure out how to protect all of that data, because it is that important to our businesses. Our businesses, they want to extract the business insights that are embedded in this data. And therefore, they want to collect it, they want to keep it, they want to use it. And as security leaders, we have to figure out ways to protect that data. We have to find ways to make sure that we make it available to the people who need it and not to those who don't. But if you just think about it, the criminals today are very well funded, and they're extremely smart, they are innovative, and they actually using everything that we want for our businesses, they want as well. They want to use the insights in our data. They want to steal our data because they can monetize it. They want to use innovation, just like we use innovation to serve our customers. They want to use innovation to serve their needs. And so with all of this, I think, comes the risk. Yes, that's true, but the opportunities are just enormous. And so one of the things that I want to share with people today right here is that this is a very exciting field of work. It is a very available field of work. There's a lot of variety, and it's exciting because, again, as I said, this is full employment. So if you want a job in this field, it's there and it's available. I will come back and be in one of the breakout sessions, and I hope to see you there. In the meantime, I'm going to turn this back over to Bill.
Thank you very much. It's always good to have Big Blue here. For those of you who don't know what that reference is, that's what they used to call IBM. Wow. Okay, so we're going to move now into the panelist session. And so what we're going to do is we're going to start off with just a little bit of a discussion from each panelist on who they are, why they're here, and kind of short excerpt on how did they get into cybersecurity, which is really going to lead us to the rest of the conversation. So I'm going to ask that Jackie, if you would introduce yourself and start us off.
Thank you, Bill. So my name is Jackie Castelli, and I am currently the head of product marketing at a company called Duo. And the main goal of this company is to help secure access to mission critical resources and resources in general. So if you look at the field of cybersecurity, we're positioned at the very, very beginning of the attack chain, trying to keep the bad guys out to start with. So how did I enter the field of cybersecurity? It's a very good question, Bill, because I entered that field before it was even a field. I totally lucked out, and when I was still in college, I got an internship in this company that at the time was doing a lot of different software, and one day they decided to produce what they called an antivirus software. And I remember back in the days, people didn't know what viruses were, and they thought it was an urban legend. So when we went and talked to customers about antivirus, they were like, we don't need that. This is a legend, that the viruses don't exist. So it is as far back as, my start in cybersecurity went. And honestly, if I had to do it all over again, this is the path I would pick, because it's been like a couple of decades and it's going to age me. But not every day has been the same. It's been such an incredible ride and such an exciting industry. And waking up every day with the feeling that you're doing something good for the world and protecting people is extremely fulfilling when you have a job that is that intense. So, the field evolved to becoming what it is, like this gigantic industry. Back in the days, there was only a few vendors, and you had to learn on the job. There was no curriculum, there was no degrees, there was no university path that you could take to get a degree in cybersecurity. And today, for those of you who are listening, you're lucky. I mean, Cal Poly and other, education institution offer a course, a cursus that you can follow to become a cybersecurity expert. So I would say, take advantage of that. This is great. So I'm sorry, Bill, this is a very long introduction. I hope it answered the question.
You did. And there's a strong correlation to Duo and Cal Poly. Cal Poly has instituted multi-factor authentication via Duo across all faculty, staff, and students at the university. And we're working through the deployment for that now. So thank you very much. An excellent story. And I can relate to, what do you mean they call it cybersecurity? So thank you very much. Next, I'd ask Stephanie. Stephanie, will you introduce yourself and answer the same question, please?
Sure. Thanks again for having me. My name's Stephanie Cervantes. I am currently the CEO of Securesmart Solutions, which is a California small business value-added reseller. How I got here. After spending 29 years with the state of California, doing cybersecurity and privacy was a natural kind of flow to go into that because it still excites me. Initially back in the mid 90s, I started the first privacy program for one of the California taxing entities, had to figure that out. And after about a year, my director came to me and said, can you take over as an information security officer? And I said, you've got to be kidding me. I can barely turn on my computer. What do you need me to do? And he said, I don't know. It's in the state administrative manual, which I then read, and it had one line. It said, the information security officer is responsible for the information assets of the agency. And not knowing what that was, again, like Jackie, I had to figure it out myself. We progressed, and it's been a very good long ride. It was on the job training, learning from the technical staff and kind of moving through it as as we went. But it's been a good ride. I've learned architecture and IT security and all of that. So again, it is doable coming from political science background and degree that you can excel in this field.
Thank you, Stephanie. I think you're the awardee of the Been There, Done That merit badge for this event. Is that correct?
Yes, I would agree.
Yeah. Working for the state of California and developing cybersecurity policy. Wow. Next, Casey, would you introduce yourself and how the heck did you get into this?
That's a good question. I ask myself that sometimes as well.
No, Casey, I didn't say why. I said how. Yes. So.
Oh, how?
Yeah,
sorry, my bad. So my name's Casey Ellis. I'm the founder, chairman, and CTO of BugCrowd and the co-founder of the Disclose.io project. Really how I got into this, I just always, we talked about the dark hoodie clad folk in the basement messing about with computers. That was me. I was never, I always enjoyed the idea of thinking like a criminal and getting computers to do things that they weren't necessarily designed to do in the first place. But I never had the appetite to cause harm and to cross the boundaries into being a criminal or being someone that was using that to attack other people, because that's just how I roll. So, that was growing up. And then basically, I actually got into, my first job was an IT engineering apprenticeship. And I pretty much just started hacking stuff straight away. And I'm like, this is really fun. This is super easy. This is actually a little bit scary. And all of a sudden, I started getting recognition of the fact that feedback in organizations about where they're vulnerable and what they can do to mitigate the risk was a career path. So, pretty much all my Christmases came at once at that point. And I've been, neck deep in cybersecurity since it was called InfoSec, and that was about 20 years ago. So that's me.
Thank you, Casey. And Casey's been a huge advocate of ours and a sponsor for us at DEF CON. And without his backing at DEF CON, it had been tough going there. For those of you who ever get to go, DEF CON is the hackers conventions of all hackers. It's a very interesting experience.
I highly recommend it. We had to miss it this year, obviously, because of COVID. But when it goes back to being a real thing, just being a part of the community and seeing what it looks like, even if hacking and offensive security isn't your particular cup of tea, just going in there to see how people that think that way behave and what the community looks like. There's a lot of similarities between the good faith versions of that and how the bad guys operate. So there's a lot to learn from going along.
Casey, one of my undergraduates is in social studies, and I'll tell you what, I employ that more at DEF CON than I do any of the technical skill sets. And I'm sure you understand why.
Absolutely.
Matt, why don't you tell us who you are and kind of how you got here?
All right, thank you, everybody. My name is Matt Lemire. I'm a regional sales director for CrowdStrike. I cover the education vertical across the US, so I get to talk to lots of colleges and universities and even down to K through 12s. I got into cybersecurity. I actually, I majored in law in college, believe it. I went and worked at a law firm and was so unhappy I decided to go into sales. And I could see from the outset, I wanted to be in high tech. I was living in Silicon Valley. And I worked for a big company called Juniper Networks. And I noticed the one item that I had the most fun selling was selling remote access to protect people and selling firewalls. And from there, I went to a company called Palo Alto Networks for years and was able to sell into the education vertical there. And then really chase the technology. And the technology went from the perimeter to the endpoint, meaning your computers, your cell phones, and all this data. And I found myself really enjoying protecting schools and students and professors and their data. I think when you protect the commercial industries, you help them and you give them a competitive edge. But when you protect the universities, you're really helping protect the students. I became fascinated meeting people like Jackie, who spoke at Duo. I had the pleasure of working with her for a long time, and she's amazing, and taught me about the bad guys out there. There's nation states, there's hackers, there's people that want to hack into your pacemaker so you can ransom them and literally putting your life the line, and being able to go after and stop people like that to me has been, you know, a passion of mine. So I really do like it. I do love what I'm going to hopefully not butcher your name, Shamla said earlier, that it is an industry that really takes all people. I love that we've got some STEM students here. I think that's great. One of my daughters was in the STEM program, the other one wasn't. But the one that wasn't is actually working on internships in this industry to go into marketing, because it really is a great career path, and you feel good about what you do. And I love working with individuals and students like you at Cal Poly. So thanks for letting me participate.
Thank you, Matt. Patricia, welcome back. Why don't you tell everybody who you are if they haven't forgotten you?
Thank you. The welcome back is because I've been a professor at Cal Poly for nearly 25 years, and I just officially retired in June. So this is the welcome back, and I hope nobody's forgotten me yet. It's only been a couple months, but you never know. And so here's my retirement. I still haven't integrated my office yet at home from bringing my books and things home from Cal Poly. And here I am on, this is my second panel today and second Zoom call of the day. So Matt still wins the award for Zoom calls of the day, but I'm trying. Okay. So it's interesting. I, like a number of you, came into security different ways. And also before there was an area called cybersecurity. And I agree with Jackie. It's like, you know, appreciate taking these classes and having someone teach you these things. So I started out a different way. I started out in accounting and realized that just was not for me. And so I had a minor in computers. And so I worked in banking, and someone in HR saw my background and said, hey, there's this new area starting, because this was a while ago, called computer auditing. Are you interested? And I said, sure, what is it? And then same thing, I found out and kind of worked my way through the ranks. I think security is literally in my blood. My father was a policeman. So I started doing computer auditing, and then I went on and got an MBA, and then I wanted to be more technical, so I switched to engineering, which is not the normal way to do it, and it was the hardest thing I've done. But anyhow, I remember taking my 3 electrical engineering classes, and that's when I became a really good student. So I did that, and so I got my PhD out of computer science. But then I taught a number of places, and then I taught at Cal Poly and quality and testing, and then got into the security area, and again, just really enjoy it. So in my retirement, just before that, Stephanie, who's on the panel here, she and I have been giving talks on topics like this. And in fact, we met, Bill, on this, I think this panel 2-3 years ago when you had a Women in Leadership Cybersecurity, and we've been fast friends since. And so we formed a company, and you have to check it out only because the logo will make you laugh, if nothing else. It's called Cyber Chicks Computing, or Cyber Chicks Consulting. And so that's what we're doing. And so we're doing some consulting and giving talks, and look forward to the days when we can get back on the road. I'm sure all of us do, and can meet people in person. So thanks for having me back.
Thank you, Pat. We're so glad to have you. And I think there's an interesting context that we've been tap dancing around just real quick, and then I want Gina to go. But, you know, work for us in the cyber arena during COVID has tripled, not gone down. The more virtual, the more work we've had to do. The more we see a reliance on a virtual future, the faster, better we better get at doing this. Gina, if that's not a good lead in, I don't know what is. Gina's been busy today with a Splunk conference that's just exceptional. Gina, please introduce yourself and how you got into this.
Thank you so much, Bill. I'm so excited to be here. My name's Gina Watkins, been in the IT industry for 27 years. I actually started in the United States Air Force in South Korea, where I was an information security analyst. And I had to be locked away in this hill for 12 hours a day. And lo and behold, I fell in love with cybersecurity. So interesting way I got into cybersecurity. Anyhow, actually continued my career in network design and architecture before there was a security department. So I installed and designed networks, Cisco networks, and then that included cybersecurity, right? Before they were branched off into two different departments. Recently, been with Splunk for about 2.5 years, and absolutely love the company that I am working for. So just a quick shout out, there is a free virtual conference that we're doing right now for the next 3 days. And you're welcome to get in there and register. Essentially, this is the reason I came over to Splunk, was not only because of their culture, but it was because of the value of their product. And cybersecurity, obviously, we all know that no matter what device you have, no matter what vendor you are, you need cybersecurity in your infrastructure. And so one of the things that Splunk does so well, and one of the things that I love to work on is our SIM product, which is our security events and management platform. So this is the ability to correlate cybersecurity events all across different devices, different infrastructure. You know, I remember back in the day when I was troubleshooting a network issue or a server issue or application issue, we would have 10 different folks on a call, and we would be on that call all night long. Well, with the ability to ingest all the different data source in a single pane of glass, you can now troubleshoot without having to take so much time, so many resources. You can look at everything you need to do. So I'm definitely excited to be here, because cybersecurity is definitely a field where we need more people. About 4 years ago, there was 1 million jobs that were unfulfilled because there was a lack of skilled cybersecurity professionals out there. Now there's 4 million jobs that are unfulfilled because we do not have the cybersecurity professionals that we need. So there are so many different plethoras of categories that you could branch into. I've done a lot of instruction, teaching. I'm very passionate about having women in this industry, because still to this day, when I teach a class, I only see 10 to 20% of women attendees versus men. So men are great, women are great, but we need more diversity, right? So definitely encouraged to be here, and there is no limits into cybersecurity. I love the fact that we have many different personalities. You know, I think I'm a personality that loves to be by myself and have my own time, but I'm also very outgoing. So in cybersecurity, you have to, you know, kind of be diverse and play well with others, but still get down and do what you got to do when you're investigating and troubleshoot. So definitely glad to be here, Bill. Thanks so much for inviting us. Splunk.
Absolutely. Thank you. And we probably have time in OSAN together, so we'll do a comparative analysis later.
Yeah.
I'm Air Force retired as well, electronic warfare. And so I made a few trips through that arena. We're going to open up now for questions. I believe that's the right answer, isn't it, Eileen? And you can use the Q&A function to ask the questions. And if you don't have a question, I'm going to start questioning the panelists myself with some really intelligent questions, really, really hard questions for them to answer. And so what I want to do is I want to start off first with Casey. Casey, what's the one piece of advice you would give to a rising senior who's going to want to jump into cybersecurity?
A piece of advice. Well, the first thing I'd say is awesome. Thank you. We need you. And you know, we're thrilled that you're interested in getting into this space. Probably the one piece of advice would be community. Like connect with the communities that exist in the different fields of cybersecurity. It's an incredibly broad domain. It touches like literally every area of technology and business. You mentioned social engineering before. I was talking about like offensive security on a computer system. There's defense, there's all sorts of different areas. And I really think it comes down to, everyone has their own particular wiring. And I fundamentally believe that the best things happen when you connect what you're innately wired up to enjoy and be most productive doing with the thing that you actually do for work. So, not kind of necessarily locking yourself into a like one thing that you just want to do forever. But taking as many samples as you can of this incredible spectrum of cybersecurity you could get involved in, and just seeing really what clicks. I think the best way to do that's through community.
Right. Great answer. I love that. Love that. Jackie, I've got one I'd like you to answer if you would. The question is, if you're a student planning to concentrate in information systems, would you still be able to do a career in cybersecurity, or does it have to be just computer science?
No, you could do a career in cybersecurity regardless of the curriculum you followed. So even if you did a marketing degree, I mean, I got a bachelor in business administration, which means I don't have a technical background, and yet, I got a chance to pivot and get into cybersecurity. As many of the panelists have mentioned before, it is such a vast field, and the level of skill set and the breadth of skill set that we need spans beyond just computer science. Like, we need people who do training, we need people to raise awareness, we need people in education, we need people in marketing, we need skill set that span across everything that the educational system is offering. So if you are passionate about cybersecurity, and you've already branched into some other kind of curriculum, it's not too late. It's never too late, in fact. I forgot who in the panel was mentioning IoTs, and Bill, you mentioned like there is a threat of, holding our medical equipment hostage. So even if you decided to become a medical doctor or going down that field, there is always a door into cybersecurity, no matter what. So I hope that answers your question.
Hey, Bill, can I add to that?
Absolutely.
So, right now that everybody's working from home, there's a lot of companies, cybersecurity companies, that are offering their training for free. So even if you are not in the cybersecurity field, I used to work for Fortinet, which is a firewall company. It's actually a cybersecurity platform with many different devices. They are actually offering all of their cybersecurity training for free. Classes that would normally cost $3,000 a class, and there's 20 classes or so. Splunk offers some free cybersecurity training, but if you just Google online free cybersecurity training, you can get a lot of good information out there.
And Bill, if you don't mind, I just want to build on what Gina just said, because this is very, very important. Cybersecurity is not like building spaceship. If you wanted to build a spacecraft, you'd have to have access to what NASA has access to, which is all the material and everything. But cybersecurity, you have everything you need in your home to start in cybersecurity, and that's called a computer. And really, that's all you need. So it is open and available to anyone.
All right, the questions are starting to just pour in here. So here we go. We're going to try to get some of these here. I'm going to go with this one for Matt. What's the best way to learn cybersecurity without getting in trouble?
That's a good question. I think there's so much out there to learn right now, and to kind of pile on with what the other experts said. And it's funny to hear that Jackie had a background in business. She's one of the smartest technical people I've ever known. She's brilliant with the technology side of it. I think being involved and keeping up with the news, really understanding there's lots of different ways to be involved in cybersecurity. There's a lot of different types of bad actors or threat actors out there. I mentioned earlier, there's nation states that are trying to do things today, like hack into the election rolls and disrupt our government. There's companies or countries like China that are trying to steal access from our businesses so they can learn and kind of build a better widget, if you will. And then there's people that are out to get money. I think the online training is amazing. I think you can get internships right now if you're still in college. I know our company at CrowdStrike is accepting applications across every part of our business, not just the technical side of it, for summer internships that are coming up. I know my, esteemed, colleagues from Splunk. These are all fantastic organizations. Duo, they mentioned Fortinet earlier. Do take advantage of this time with remote learning. Our organization was about 80% remote workforce before, this COVID started, and now we're at close to 97%. And I think a lot of it's going to stay that way. So now it's just a good time to just start doing Google searches on cybersecurity. And there's easy ways to be one of the good guys, not get in trouble and start trying to hack. I applaud Casey for learning how to do that. I'd probably type the wrong thing and would get in trouble. So I would just say, Google cybersecurity and see where it takes you. There's a lot of great information out there. And I love the idea of doing the free classes. I think that's fantastic.
Awesome.
If I can add to that, just real briefly as well. So I'm not a lawyer, and if I was, I'm not your lawyer. So, there's the caveat.
All right. I'm really worried. Go ahead, Casey.
No, it's important. It's important to recognize that, when it comes to doing security research on other people's systems, the default laws that exist around that basically make it illegal unless you've been given explicit authorization to do that research. That's less true for your own computer or for software that you've got in your own possession, definitely for free and open source software. But the big thing would be to look for organizations that have extended an invitation for you to basically go do this stuff with their gear. It's part of what we've been doing with the Disclosure project, is this idea of being able to standardize the legal language that's used to put in front of people so they can understand that, this place is okay. They actually want me to help them out with their security. It's legal. I don't have to do it feeling like I might go to jail or get my door kicked in or whatever else. And that's becoming a more and more common thing. I think, for folk that, like back in the day, you could, I never did anything illegal, Your Honor. But, back in the day, you could kind of just experiment with this stuff and get away with it. I think these days it is very wise to just basically have a look and see if they've got a vulnerability disclosure program. Like, have they partnered with a company like BugCrowd to actually extend that invitation out to the security community, things like that.
I think one of the things we want to mention while we're here is the whole aspect of a CEH, Certified Ethical Hacker, and what that means and the program associated with that. Is if you're having questions, that's a great resource to go look at on the Certified Ethical Hacking. It really talks about what are the morals associated with this whole career. So an interesting one.
Hey, Bill.
Yes.
Bill, can I ask you?
Bill?
We're going to break into at some point into smaller groups, but
yes,
this is a great question for you to answer. The question came up in the Q&A. When working with the cybersecurity company, would any of you need some sort of security clearance? If so, what is a path to earn a security clearance? And I know part of what you're doing with the Cyber Center is to, working on ways for some, students to be able to get some sort of a security clearance before they leave.
Yeah, so it's an interesting question. And my answer is, depends on which pathway you want to go. There is a commercial sector for cyber. There is a civil sector for cyber, and there is a government sector for cyber. The government has benefits, commercial has benefits, civil has benefits. It just depends on really what you want to do. I will quote a hacker that used to work for me who works for the federal government. She is a civil servant for the federal government, and she refers to it as, I have a free get out of jail card for everything I do for the federal government. That's a powerful statement. But basically what it says is the government pays her to do amazing things. So that requires a clearance. So again, the ways to start to get a clearance, it can be through internships. We're trying to establish a program for Cal Poly students to be cleared. That's working with the federal government, so it's more government related. But if you're in the commercial sector, you don't need a clearance. You can do all these things without that clearance. And there's some amazing work that can be done that, believe it or not, once you do the commercial side, leads to the government clearance and really accelerates that process. I would suggest don't follow the money, follow what your heart says is fun to do. Shamla, you want to add to that?
I do. You know, I think for students who are listening to this, one thing you have to realize is that ethical hacking, a very fun job and a very important job. At the same time, compromising systems, fun job, really important job. But those are only a very small fraction of the jobs in cybersecurity. So, you know, you're not going to get in trouble if you start to be proactive, if you learn how to write policy, how to communicate ideas, how to think proactively about hardening systems and, you know, protecting systems against those kinds of attacks. And so I feel like, you know, we have to make sure that students understand that that whole, you know, sit over your keyboard and kind of hack and compromise systems is only a fraction of this field.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I love about this panel already is there is such a wide variety of options of things to do and how to do it. And we haven't even talked about some of the new emerging areas, such as cybersecurity in space. Realize that commercial spacecraft need cybersecurity components. That means the entire digital team supporting space, and we're talking SpaceX, Blue Horizons, all of those need a cybersecurity component. That's a whole new field that's opened up, that's just emerging, exploding because of our return to space. So definitely tons of opportunity. Let's see here, just open it up. First one with their hand up gets to answer the question. I feel that in cybersecurity, it's a lot of reading of manuals and must be done to stay up to date with new technologies. Is that correct? Matt, go for it.
No, absolutely not. If I had to read manuals all day, I never would have gotten into this business. I would have been, there'd be stacks of manuals sitting on my desk right here, and I'd probably be living at my mom's house. And I'm 49. But no, there are so many different areas to get involved in this. I'm going to pass it over to some of our other technical teams. But it's ever changing. You know, if you read a manual that was posted today, that manual probably wouldn't be good because, you know, the adversaries are always changing, they're adapting, and there's always something new to learn. So that's why I think, you know, the areas of artificial intelligence have become so important. The old days of, you know, somebody hacking into a computer and it leaving a signature behind, and then you need to get that signature out to everybody to be able to protect yourselves is over, right? Those days required a sacrificial lamb and somebody to get burned in order for the rest of the world to be protected. So now looking at, you know, things like machine learning and artificial intelligence has really come such a long way. And I think those are other career paths that I think are just in their infancy and are going to be so important for the new digital world in order to help protect people from cybercrime.
Okay, Matt, you opened up the door for the question I wanted to ask, and I gave my opinion on one of the emerging fields associated with cybersecurity, which is space. I'd like everybody to kind of give me, what is one of your emerging fields, one of those emerging areas that people don't really think about cybersecurity being a component or having to have. So,
well, I will add to that, you know.
There you go, Gina, jump in.
Yeah. So, you know, if any of you are out there, definitely follow me on LinkedIn, because I always post content that has to do with cybersecurity in different industries. And one of my latest posts had to do with the fact that cybersecurity is really a life or death situation. There was a hack that occurred in Germany, and because someone breached the hospital, it actually resulted in someone passing away. So understanding that you have so much value in cybersecurity because you essentially are ensuring that patient care is done correct and it's done efficiently, and you're protecting those patients. So a lot of times, you know, I work at Splunk, and our thing is digital data. We're protecting data, but there are so many different verticals out there where you're protecting other things. And if you go in the healthcare industry and cybersecurity, you're actually protecting lives. So it's very important to understand that cybersecurity is in every vertical, in every industry, and your value is needed in this day and age.
Perfect. Somebody else, an emerging area that people don't normally think about is cybernetics.
I was gonna add to that on the reading question as well.
Yeah.
It's like, it's curation. I mean, honestly, I stay up to date. It drives me insane, but I stay up to date mostly through Twitter. And you know, I know there's people that I trust in terms of the curation of security news and research that they're doing, that then allows me to kind of stay up to speed with what's coming over the hill. So that kind of goes back to my suggestion around community and just understanding who's working on what. I think that's a really powerful tool because it moves quick. It is a field that you know, what we're talking about today might not be our top priority tomorrow. What domain is, like, the one that keeps me up at night is specifically machine learning. I think when we talk about AI, there's a lot of difficulty in clarifying what the heck that actually means. So it's a bit too broad to kind of bucket it as a discipline just yet. But from a machine learning standpoint, you know, the whole idea of like supervised, you know, convoluted neural networking, how that's been basically weaponized for disinformation, as we've seen play out in the US and we're seeing play out in other parts of the world. That's an unintended consequence of how that code was written in the first place. And, you know, what I've seen through the time that I've spent, you know, basically crowdsourcing security research through BugCrowd, is the quicker a technology gets rolled out, like speed is the natural enemy of security, right? So the minute something gets deployed everywhere, you can fairly reliably predict that we're going to have an oh crap moment at some point down the track. I think ML is an area that yeah, it just makes me wonder. Like, the, you know, example would be, so there's the election one. There's also the example of the research where I think a researcher, or an artist, I think it was, actually grabbed a bunch of Android phones, put them in a little red wagon, and walked slowly across a bridge and simulated a traffic jam. Now that was a machine learning attack. And if you think about, you know, what a criminal could do, you could actually divert traffic around, create the illusion of a traffic jam to, you know, cover a physical crime that you were committing, whatever else. There's all sorts of, like, it opens Pandora's box quite quickly in terms of some of the potential there. So I think understanding how that stuff works and being able to inform it both from a policy, but also an adversarial input standpoint, I think that's a smart bet career-wise.
So I'm really hoping somebody will say agriculture, and I don't have to do it, because then it would sound like I'm really propping up Cal Poly, and I probably should do that as the moderator. So somebody want to address our agriculture?
I would agree with you, Bill, that, you know, operating technology, the OT technology, has been left behind. You know, from agriculture and the food supply to our power infrastructure, to the road signs that we see every day warning us of different things, to the stoplights. Those are things that, you know, we've been talking about in our community for years with the next frontier of cyber attacks, but we're seeing not a lot of stuff being done there. It's kind of almost the forgotten frontier. And so I think it is very important, very critical. And that's one of the things that concerns me.
Thank you. Shamla, I'm going to put you on spot. IBM, very data analytics and cyber. Would you mind talking about those two?
Absolutely. So, you know, like I said earlier, we live in a data economy, and so we all generating so much data, and much of our devices are generating as much data. And what's happening is it's becoming more and more difficult to consume that data, to understand when you're under attack. And so you need sophisticated technology, and you need sophisticated techniques that would then get combined with the human element to say, how do we make humans perform way higher than they're performing today? And extracting the insights, but also enabling them to act quickly. So I think it is a data analytics problem, but, you know, many problems are data analytics problems. What we really need to start thinking about for cybersecurity is, how do I find the needle in the haystack And how do I do it really quickly? And then how do I mobilize my defenders, if you will, as quickly?
Thank you. We've had a question or two about how do non-computer scientists get involved. I'm going to relay you to look at a symposium support today. Jimmy Baker, Martin Minich are going to give a section on that. So if you'll wait for that one and go to that section, you're going to get the answers that you want there from the university experience. I think that's a good one. And that's the same one for if you're a liberal arts student. I think that there is opportunity to get involved in this. Let's see here. A tee up for everyone. Thoughts on cryptocurrencies and their potential opportunities for cybersecurity?
I can take that one to start, Bill.
Okay.
So digital currency is just another evolution of our financial systems, right? Just like credit cards were, just like touchless payments, etc. But the key thing, I think, for digital currency is that it's a great innovation for financial services. What I find most interesting about it, though, is that the technology behind that can be used for so many other purposes. So digital currency, it's a great use case, but for every transaction type system, blockchain, which is the technology that underlies the digital currency technology, can be used for all transactions. Anything that requires authentication can be actually used using this kind of ledger method. And the way I think about it is this public crowdsourced authentication of sorts that actually validates the transaction's authenticity. So I feel like we haven't even touched the surface on how to use that technology for those kinds of transaction systems. Digital currency is the one we know it's most commonly used, but I think we're going to see a lot more opportunity there for using the blockchain technology.
Yeah, it's a good call out. I think blockchain got off to a bumpy start with cryptocurrency because it just confused the heck out of everyone. And I completely agree in digital currencies as something that is almost inevitably going to be a part of the future. With respect to blockchain itself and some of the other ways that we're using like proof of work and cryptography to prove custody and to also define value in the case of cryptocurrencies, I think this is where cryptographic research itself is actually pretty interesting as well, because at some point during the lifespan of basically everyone on this call, commoditized quantum computing is going to hit the scene, at which point a lot of the rules that we apply to work being hard for a computer in a way that actually makes these systems resilient basically goes out the window. So that's a pretty, if you're interested in cryptocurrency and that whole area, actually understanding some of the underlying cryptography and the principles behind that, and then how evolutions in compute itself are going to affect that over time, I think is a pretty interesting thing to look into.
Hey, Casey, let me add to that. As you talk about kind of cryptography, you just think about a quantum computer that's now going to be 1 million times faster than any computer we've ever experienced as humanity. All of a sudden, all of this cryptography is now at risk, right? Because today, what stands between us and the bad guy is they don't have enough compute to unravel all of the cryptography. And as soon as the technology is available to them at that scale, I actually think the encryption bets are going to be off. We're going to have to be thinking of how to do something completely different.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, the piece with quantum computing, it's not so much that they're 1 million times faster, it's that they're just completely different. Like the concept of it being faster and the concept of work in quantum computing is fun. It's like Moore's law, because for those of you who've heard of Moore's law and the whole idea of the increasing speed at which a calculation can be done on a traditional processor, that has been the thing that we've relied on to make sure that things stay secure, because the idea is, well, it's going to take a bad guy 1 million years to crack this thing, so therefore it's safe. it's not even the fact that that time frame's shorter, it's the fact that quantum works in a fundamentally different way. And I think there's a lot of these sort of, I wonder what that's going to do kind of areas of research that, end up being really consequential to cybersecurity.
Absolutely. We've got another one that's come in, and it's an interesting twist on what I was saying earlier, which is, does anyone on the panel have experience with cybersecurity related to protecting the environment, something like climate change?
So let me start, Bill, and I'll invite others to chime in, because I'm sure that we all have, something we can contribute here. Remember that for the most part, the whole conversation around climate change can be grounded in data. And a lot of the messages get really confusing because we don't have really crisp, specific, directly related data that we can use to make our case, right? If I think about what happened with this whole pandemic and COVID-19 in particular, because, I know as a fact, IBM actually provided the compute capability to conduct all of that data analysis and research. So to me, the climate problem is very similar. We have so much data available to us. We just need to figure out how to collect it, to collate it, and then to analyze it, to really come up with what are the facts, right? So I feel like a lot of it today is just, debate and intuition, but the data is out there. We just have to figure out the compute to go get it.
Yeah, I would add as well as that, climate change clearly has a lot of different economic forces on it. In terms of what we do to be proactive about addressing it, people wanting the status quo to continue as it is and so on, which makes the integrity, like actually protecting the integrity of that data and the integrity of the research that's being applied. The last thing you want is to be able to do all of this like really good work to create strategies to prevent climate change, and then for that to be basically dismissed because it was compromised, or the integrity of that data isn't what it should be.
Okay, I've got the one we've been hoping would not get asked all day long. Casey's probably already starting to sweat. Thoughts on election security and associated technology infrastructure? Casey, I'll give you a pass if you want. I mean,
well, I've been talking about this one quite a bit, and it's funny because I'm Australian, as you can probably hear, and can't vote in the US. So technically, that's foreign interference, which is the joke I always make. Look, I'm very glad that mobile voting. My concern at the beginning of the year was that the pandemic and the changes in lifestyle and work from home and all that sort of stuff would actually force or cause the US to basically rush to mobile voting. And I'm really glad that didn't happen. I think that will be a thing that's a part of how we conduct elections by 2024. But given all of the different forces that exist around this particular election, it just wouldn't have been wise to do that. So that's one thought just around getting involved in that. There's going to be, I think, off the back of the presidential elections in the US, normally what happens is that everyone gets really like excited and focused on how to better administer elections in the year leading up to a presidential election. And then everyone proceeds to forget about it for the next 3 years and then freaks out again, and the cycle kind of repeats itself. I think this year's a bit different because of all the changes in how we vote and all that sort of stuff. So the big thing that the Bugcrowd's been pushing on and facilitating, and through the Disclose.io project as well, is helping the voting machine manufacturers write policy that actually encourages people to disclose vulnerabilities that have been identified and even conduct security research. Like historically, security researchers and the voting machine manufacturers, they didn't really get off on the right foot. And we've managed to basically turn that boat around, which is super exciting. But now what we're starting to see happen is states, so Ohio and Iowa are two that have done this. They've actually released policies that say, hey, if you're doing election security research, A, that's okay. thank you for doing that. We want you to do that. And B, here is where to send it and how you can interact with us in a way that allows us to fix those issues. And that's going to flush out risks that would have been unknown otherwise. But what it also does, you can explain that idea to your grandma. Like a lot of the other things that we do in cybersecurity, like we talk about quantum computing, and you're going to lose the average voter fairly quickly because they just don't really understand what you're talking about. Like the idea of neighborhood watch for the internet is something everyone can understand, which in turn makes them more confident in the democratic process itself. So that's my hot take as a non-citizen.
If I may, because I'm the other non-citizen here too, just want to make a statement at a very, very high level. Something that's always puzzled me about election security is kind of the almost conflicting goal is trying to achieve. When you vote, you want to have privacy and you want to have anonymity. But when you vote, people also want to make sure that you are who you say you are, so they want to ensure your identity. So how do you make those two things work together? So you can do it easily physically, right? Somebody verifies your identity with your driver's license, and then you pick up a ballot and then you drop it somewhere. But how do you translate that in the cyber world? And that is like, wow, I don't know that anyone has answered that question yet. And I find it, I mean, if the stakes were not that high, I would find that very amusing. So for those of you who are aspiring, cybersecurity professional, think about that. How can I ensure my identity and my anonymity at the same time?
I'd like to add to what I agree with what Jackie said, and also what Casey was just mentioning about Ohio in particular. And that always stood out to me. That's where I'm from. And years ago, I was at a quality conference and met a lady named Candace. I think her last name is Hoke, H-O-K-E. She's one of the like election experts, and she's a law professor at Cleveland State. We spoke for hours, and this was probably 10 years ago, and it was really scary to learn all these horror stories back then and how we've made progress, but not so much. One of the earliest, we all know Diebold, whether you know the name or not, that's the name of the company that has most of our ATMs. And so in the early days, when the US government got into it, there was this idea of let's throw money at it, and who could come up with the electronic voting machines. And so the money went in, and security was an afterthought. And Diebold actually changed their name for their part that did the election machines and spun it off to another name and then sold it because they didn't want to be associated with these horrible machines and the lack of security. So we've come a long way, but there's still a long way to go.
I think the thing that's that people, it isn't obvious is that voting machines, it wasn't actually like, hey, let's use technology and the internet to make things more efficient. The trigger for the creation of voting machines in the first place was actually the Americans with Disabilities Act. So security wasn't the main goal. The idea was like, how can we give people that are sight impaired or hearing impaired the ability to vote and level the playing field out from a democratic standpoint. But then again, here's the theme that keeps popping up. It's speed is the natural enemy of security, and all of these unintended consequences pop out. I think the other piece that was pretty, again, not intuitive, but it makes sense when you look at it. The 10th Amendment and the execution of states' rights and how elections are administered in the United States actually makes solving this problem at a systemic level pretty difficult, because every state does things in its own way. Every county downstream does things in their own way. And complexity is also a natural enemy of security. So it's one of those things where, there's a lot of work to do, but this is where like folk that are in this group that want to be able to participate in that, I think there's going to be some really good opportunities to make a very, very important and powerful difference to how we do democracy and creating confidence on top of that.
And as you say, there's no oversight guidance from above on this subject. We talked about in California alone, the Office of Elections doled out money to all the different areas, each differently, and each was allowed to do different with what they did with the money. So, some of it was training, some of it was defending, some of it was analysis, some of it was completely different. So Wow. What a challenge. And that sounds like a great challenge that our Cal Poly students could probably work on one day. I want to talk about another challenge, and it's the correlation of cybersecurity and the end to human trafficking. I know there's a couple companies that have been working on that. Would somebody like to jump on that?
So Splunk actually has a department called Splunk for Good, where we've committed to donating millions of dollars in free licenses for community-based programs. And one of the programs that we actually deal with is for human trafficking, where I believe it's called the GEN network, where they actually have created a organization that will combine data from multiple different organizations and then run that data through Splunk and then get actionable insights on that. So finding out where human traffic victims get placed based off of location, based off of different data points, and then also even once they get to the victims and they interview them, they also start logging their emotions. They start logging the feedback from the interviews, putting all this data into Splunk, and then searching on it and creating insights in it, getting actionable insight, actionable data, so that you can make a difference and get ahead of the issue. So we're pretty proud of that initiative.
Others? Other inputs? Okay. All right.
One, actually, yeah, one. Open source. So this is actually something that's happening in Australia. Open source intelligence applied to solving missing persons cases associated with human trafficking, and starting to be applied to the whole idea of creating information and compiling it to get to law enforcement to disrupt this type of thing. There's a lot of areas, like the traffickers are using technology. That makes them vulnerable, which is where we get to flip the script and actually use some of the things that the bad guys use against us to be helpful, and obviously doing that on the right side of the law and all those things. But that leverage is there, which I think is pretty exciting. And I think as well, practically making sure that we can find ways, and we continue to find ways to keep informants and even victims safe, as they're trying to help out on the ground, because this is it's a easier problem to work on from the comfort of our homes. But if you talk about the folks that are actually supporting disruption of human trafficking on the ground, their lives are at stake. So like there's a protection, I think, component that we can bring to bear there as well.
Thank you all. All right, so we're gonna kind of slow it, wrap it up. Last question, but everybody gets to participate in this question. It's a little bit of a curveball, so welcome to my world. The question is, what is your favorite book, movie, or event that was social media based about cybersecurity? Okay, and we'll just start. Shamla, you want to try first?
I can go first. I think everyone should be watching The Great Hack. It's on Netflix, and actually for educational institutions, I believe that it's free.
All right. Okay, now the second rule of Bill's world is you can't repeat what somebody else said. So good start, great start. Gina?
I would say, recently, besides cybersecurity, my greatest passion is my children. And the latest family movie we watched was The Social Dilemma on Netflix. And it talked about, the importance of data and how data can be used to influence our younger generation that the minds haven't been developed yet. So that was a great movie. I think I would recommend it for everyone.
Awesome.
And Bill, if I can just jump in just to say, I'm just going to build on what both Shamla and Gina have said. You should watch both documentaries, starting with The Social Dilemma and then The Great Hack, because the first one will tell you how it's done, and the second one is a practical case of how it has been done with dire consequences.
Outstanding. And Jackie, I will give you credit for an answer that's unique because you said both, not one. You didn't repeat. So
She wins. They're
Matt,
both excellent. I would say, unfortunately, if you choose a career in cybersecurity, it's going to ruin a lot of movies for you because you're going to realize how fake they are. I had a TV show that I loved and used to, run to the TV and watch it with Kiefer Sutherland called 24. And going into cybersecurity made me realize how fake a lot of the stuff was in that show. So that I would say, you've got to really have a willing suspension of disbelief. But that was a great TV show. One quick comment I wanted to add what Gina said. I've already seen some of you guys reach out to me and gals via LinkedIn. So I highly recommend, if you don't have a LinkedIn account, get a LinkedIn account and link up with some of these esteemed panelists. I learn from these individuals every day by the things they post and these companies post. So I highly recommend doing that. And that's it. Thank you for letting me participate.
I'll give you a unique answer. How about we twist your answer and say some of the social media is the best book you've read on cybersecurity, such as LinkedIn and other things. Is that a good answer?
That's a fantastic answer.
All right, man. What a moderator. What a moderator. Casey.
Sneakers.
There we go.
Yeah. So, there's war games, hackers, and sneakers. They're like the three kind of quintessential hacker movies, cybersecurity movies in a lot of ways. Sneakers is the one that got me fascinated by the idea of being able to actually build a career in this space. And it's just a lot of fun. There's a lot of stuff in there that's kind of prescient. I'll add to the election theme as well and say that the Kill Chain documentary on HBO by Harry Hursty and the Nordic Innovation Labs group, just really talking about some of the systemic and technical things that need to be fixed when it comes to election security. That's a really powerful watch as well.
Good deal. Patricia.
Thank you. I was taking notes. Casey, was that Kill Train?
Kill Chain.
Sorry, Kill Chain.
Kill Chain.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so yeah, I really am. I'm taking a lot of notes, but I'm also trying to get some good recommendations here. The only one I can think of that hasn't been mentioned, because that's part of the rule, of course, is it's an old one, and I want to. You will remember it. Was it The Office, the one with the red stapler? Remember that? Was it The Office? Is that it? It's an old one. And thank you. And it's just one of my favorites. And I think part of it was when I was working in banking doing computer auditing, it was always concerned about the round off error. And that was how they performed this big scam. And just the whole thing, it just makes me laugh. So that would be, but that's an old one.
Good. That's acceptable answer. Stephanie.
Ooh, I passed.
Well, if we're talking movies, I would say Enemy of the State with Will Smith was a really good one to kind of get you thinking about all of the big data and how it collects and how it can be used for good or nefariously. Of course, Hollywood took liberal access to it. For books, I would say, I was trying to look to remember what the exact title, but it was the book about the anonymous attack. The kind of went into the mindset of that social movement and the attacks that were happening a few years back from Anonymous.
Okay, I'll end with mine, and it corrupted my career. Clear and Present Danger, both book and movie. Thank you very much, Casey. Quite amazing.
The book is better.
Yeah, the book is way better, phenomenally better. But that's why I said both. Really helped. Clancy had an amazing amount of insight into the real world. And just read that for what it was. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Eileen so we can separate into our different groups. I want to thank all of you for a great conversation. You all are amazing. Your companies are amazing. Your roles are amazing. And what you're doing is just awesome. And I'm so glad that our Cal Poly students had the opportunity to hear from you, to hear from your companies, and letting them sponsor you be here today. Thank you very much. Eileen, back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Bill. And esteemed panelists, I really enjoyed the conversation and sharing of information.